Well, hello again, and this is the March issue of the Mover magazine. You see on the cover this time we've got a uniforms company that is trying to break into the moving industry. They've never really been very much into the moving industry before, and they're trying to break in. So we thought we'd give them a bit of a hand by putting them on our front cover. It might be a really good time now to mention that nobody actually ever pays to be on the front cover of the Mover magazine. You may not realise that. It's not an advertising position. It's an editorial position, and we put on the cover whoever we think is most appropriate for that month. Nobody does ever pay to be on the cover, and nobody can ever pay to be on the front cover of the Mover magazine. Just a few stories in here. There's lots of stories as always in here, but there's a few that I really want to point out to you because I think they're particularly interesting. There's a story in here about planning for the expansion of clean air zones. Now, it's about the UK, but it doesn't have to be, in the sense that this is happening everywhere in the world now. Clean air zones are being introduced into major cities everywhere in the world, and this is having a major effect on people that are running vehicles, particularly if those companies are based inside those clean air zones. So in other words, you can't take your vehicles out the yard without having a problem. And there was something of an uproar in the UK about it, with the transport associations that are complaining that this is really unfair. Of course, it's particularly unfair in the moving industry because the moving industry tends to keep vehicles for a long time because their mileage is relatively low. Anyway, the story's about that, and it just gives you something to think about that moving forwards. Now, talking of which, there's an article in here that is close to my heart. It's something that I've been banging on about for some time. This one is about marketing to millennials, marketing to the younger generation. And it's true that really they don't think in quite the same way as my generation did. And anybody that is trying to sell to them, which in effect is everybody because they are the market now, really needs to rethink exactly what they're doing. A lot of you are already doing it, I know that, and a lot of you are preaching to the converted, but some are not. The old methods don't work quite as well as they used to, and that's what that story's about. There's an interesting one here from a lady called Kate Shapley. Some of you will know Katie Shapley. She runs a company called The Organisers, and really what they do is go into a home after the moving men have been there, or with the moving men indeed, to help set out the home as the customer would want it to be. And so they go through the whole thing, and they for example put the clothes in the wardrobes, and they organise the kids' toys, and they hang the curtains and put the pictures up and make sure that everything is just the way that the people want it to be. It's sort of like an extension of the moving process. And Katie is trying to encourage new business for her through moving companies that have an occasional need with a VIP customer to provide that kind of service. Read the story, it's kind of interesting. Until I met her, I didn't know that there were companies that did that. And there's one other here as well that I just want to draw your attention to, and that is, it's called Are You Sitting Comfortably? And it's about driving positions. If you're a salesman on the road, if you're a driver long distance driving, then you can cause all kinds of difficulties with back pain and so on, purely by the way in which your seat is positioned. And so we've spoken to a chiropractor who has given us some information about how you're supposed to be setting your seat up so that it's as comfortable as it can possibly be. Anyway, there we are. Lots of other things in there. I'm just back from the IMA conference in Bangkok, so I'll be reporting on that shortly. And next week I'm heading off for the Omni conference and the FEDI conference, so no doubt I'll see lots of you there. Look forward to it. Bye for now.